Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and I am a survivor of ritual abuse and mind control programming. This video is meant to serve as a disclaimer for my upcoming series on how I have personally deprogrammed myself, in part, from ritual abuse and mind control programming. Like I said, I have partially deprogrammed myself. I have done a tremendous amount of work in the last 3.5 years to free myself. I have largely integrated myself from polyfragmented dissociative identity disorder, and I've gone to great lengths to free myself from the mind control programming that kept me bound to the Satanic cult in which I was raised for 17 years. To my knowledge, I am no longer in contact with any members of the cult or any other cult. However, I do not claim perfect freedom. I still have programs that activate that really just keep me bound in self-harm, mostly emotional, and depression and dysfunction. But I do not have any programs to my knowledge that keep me going to cult members. I don't have any reporting alters to my knowledge that force me to report things to the cult. However, I am not confident that these things aren't happening dissociatively. And so I do not wish to paint myself in any kind of false light. I'm not perfectly healed. I struggle with the same things that most survivors of mind control suffer from for the rest of their lives. And so I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. But like I said, I have done a lot to heal myself. And I believe at this stage in my healing, I feel safe, and I don't feel like I'm putting anyone at risk by making videos, sharing my experience, and the tools that I have developed for healing myself from mind control programming. Now, the key word is healing myself. I can only heal myself. I have no idea what anyone else needs. I may have some ideas, basic ideas, of what's generally helpful for people who've been mind controlled and what isn't. But I cannot tell anyone what they need, and it's not my place to even speak in a general way about what anyone other than myself needs to break free from mind control. So I'm speaking only from my personal experience. And I do not wish for anyone to try these things blindly. If you hear something that inspires you, I encourage you to look within yourself and ask yourself if it is truly what you need in that moment, and if it's safe for you to try it in whatever setting, whatever capacity you can. So the second thing I want to say, the next thing I want to say, is that I'm not a therapist. I do not have any therapeutic training whatsoever. My training, actually, my psychoanalytic training, came as a mind control programmer in the cult in which I was raised. I'm a government mind control survivor, and I was programmed to program others, and I was given a very intensive education around how to do that and how to control other people's minds. And that's largely why I've been able to free myself. There are other key factors in place that made this possible, but one of the biggest things was my analytic knowledge, my education that was forced upon me from an extremely young age about mind control science. And so I do have a lot of knowledge of that. And that is what I'm going to share, but I have no therapeutic training, and I do not wish for anyone to mistake the things I say as professional opinion. You can even write everything off I say as complete lunacy, as all a delusion, if you like. It's not really my business what you do with this, but I want to make sure that people are informed that I'm a young adult without even a high school diploma, and I'm not qualified to give anyone any kind of professional advice. So, what else was I going to say? I just went blank. It happens to me a lot. Trigger warning, that's what I want to say. Sorry if that came out in a triggering way. The things I'm going to share may be highly activating for survivors. They may be upsetting for anyone, but they may be highly activating for survivors, especially those who've been programmed in the Monarch program, which is what I endured. So, to those of you who've been through MK Ultra and Monarch Mind Control, watch this with extreme caution. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the abuse. I'm going to do my absolute best to be as focused on healing as possible, but I am going to have to talk about the mechanics of programming in order to help the viewer understand how to deprogram themselves. A lot of how I've deprogrammed myself is through self-education and awareness, bringing the programmer parts of my mind into co-consciousness with the parts of me that were programmed without awareness of what mind control programming is about. That's been a huge part of my healing. And so I am going to talk about the mechanics of that stuff. So I encourage anyone who watches this to check in with themselves frequently, for survivors with multiple parts, to ask your parts how you feel, and ask your parts how you feel about me. I might not be the person to deliver this message to you. And so I encourage anyone who watches this to ask themselves if they even think that I'm healed enough to be giving them this information from a survivor to survivor perspective. You never know. I never know, I'll say. I never know who is going to carry the message to me and who isn't. So if I'm not that person, I encourage you to look elsewhere. But if something I say resonates with you, I encourage you to keep listening if you feel that it is safe for you to do so. Lastly, I want to say that as I'm not a therapist, having a safe therapist who can help you go through the process of deprogramming yourself may be vital for you. Again, I'm not trying to speak for anyone or give anyone advice. However, I will say that it is strongly recommended by all the literature and all the professionals that we survivors have professionals who we can go to for support. Now, that's not always possible. I personally have not been able to find a safe therapist. In fact, many of the therapists I've had, if not all of them, I believe there was at least one who wasn't. But many of the therapists I've had have been planned by the cult that I grew up in, who were part of the cult or programmed by the cult to keep my programming in line, to oppress survivors, pretend to be helpful, but really be there as agents of the cult, and of the cult network, the network of ritual abusers who work together to keep their victims enslaved. I lost track of what I was saying. This may happen to me a lot. I'm still polyfragmented, and I switch every few seconds sometimes, so please forgive me. Safe therapists. If you can, find a safe therapist if you don't have one already. That would be the recommended way to do any other kind of healing approach. To use any of the tools that I share, to use any tools that you find elsewhere. Basically, it's not encouraged by the professional community to treat yourself. However, I myself have had to do that, mostly on my own. And so that's part of what I have to offer, is that it is possible, it has been possible for me to break free largely on my own. Okay, my video is about to time out. I only do 9 minutes or so at a time. So I hope that I've said what's needed to be said. And in the next video, I'm going to address another final piece of this disclaimer about suicide programming. Thank you.